Hello and welcome to digital marketing's session on setting up a web presence. This is a preliminary session in which I will try to explain theoretical basics as well as some of the practical basics of in strategically setting up your business and your idea. Without further ado, let us move forward. The session might take up to 30 to 45 minutes, depending how much I speak. And if you have any questions, once again, you can always pose it to me down below in the comments, or you can send me a message wherever you feel comfortable. All right, let's move forward. Now, when you're setting up an online presence, it doesn't just have to be a website. It can be an app. It can be also on a social media presence if they're cheap enough. But you have to think about the basic questions that come to mind when you're setting up your own business online or even certain presence online. All right. So, why is my website or even my app so important? Now, the question here begs that you think about your own business ideology, your own mission and vision statements, and why you are in business in the first place. So, when you ask this question yourself, why is my business website or my app so important? It's because your website and even your app is a place where you conduct your business. It is the generator or the engine for converting users or visitors into prospective customers or end up being real long lifetime customers. And in order to do that, you have to think about certain other questions now that you want to set up your business online, such as a website. How do you build an website that will be effective in converting those users or viewers into effective, would say long-term customers, or even generating new leads who will then further become customers? Now, those questions, once again, will require strategic initiatives on your part. And then the next question is, how should you structure the information on your website? Because a website is then indexed into search engines, and that is a different topic altogether for SEO, search engine optimization. But when you're structuring a website, let's say assume that you are running a shop that sells clothes online. So you have to categorize clothes according to maybe gender, according to the type of clothing it is. Is it an accessory? Is it a full-on body suit? Is it a shirt? Is it a trouser, uppers, lowers, underwears, outerwear? It could be even, for winter wear, summer wear, however you want to categorize it, will also depend on the nature of your industry and your consumers, how they shop for things. Then we will talk a little bit about usability and also accessibility. Usability is how would the consumers actually end up using my website or app? And should I care about how I should build in usability? And build those questions will be answered. And accessibility sometimes, ill forgotten because we don't really think sometimes about how handicapped people might be using a website or an app. But now, more so ever, it's become more important because we don't want to ignore even our invisible customers. Okay. And we'll talk a little bit about responsive web design, response if we can, but you can even research this. Nowadays, it's much more easier for programmers to just opt in for the responsive web design systems or websites, which kind of adhere to different tablet or phone size, smartphone sizes that a website's, I would say, design would change on the fly or change automatically as to what sort of browser and what sort of screen size you're using, so it'll adapt itself to it. And lastly, how do I create compelling web content? If I don't have interesting content, who will come and visit me? All right. So let's move forward. Now that we have the major questions, I urge you, every time you would create a plan for digital marketing, you have these questions in front of yourself or with your team members, and then you talk to them about this. You don't have to ask about all those questions, but you have to make a checklist. This is like your checklist for life. When you ever want to launch a business online, you should ask these questions. Otherwise, it is foolish just to launch a website or build an app just for the sake of building it. Next. So, let me explain first thing. Your website or your app is number one, your place of business. Doesn't matter if you're selling anything or not. If you're on YouTube and if YouTube is your business, then you need subscribers. And subscribers means people will continuously come and watch your channel. And if they watch your channel, you'll get advertising dollars. If you're an Instagram or an Insta model, then you would constantly want people to come see your Instagram channel. And maybe that would also be important for people that sponsored you to sell their merchandise, or even have them look at, how much views you're getting in order to generate, I would say, some virility. So this is a place to which everything will be channeled back to, be it even if you have a Facebook channel, Facebook account, even if you have an Instagram account or YouTube account, doesn't matter. People at the end of the day would like to see your website because that authenticates that you are a legitimate business. Most of the time, people opt out for having a website, which is kind of wrong. Having your own website, even just a blog, authenticates that you're a legitimate business. And also, your website and app are designed to drive targeted and pre-qualified traffic to it. Traffic means your viewers. And of course, if they, let's say if I go to a YouTube channel about video gaming and the guy said, please check out my blog or please support me on my Patreon channel, and I go check out his blog separately, that means the blogging account will have some sort of analytics software installed, and it will tell me that, or it will tell that person basically, if I'm going to their website from the YouTube channel, that the traffic is coming from the YouTube channel because it's carrying that session with it. So these type of things can be tracked. It's not a big problem nowadays. I will also try to demonstrate, for example, how on YouTube you can even see your traffic sources. So your website is not just an online brochure or a pamphlet just to display your products and services. It can be used for that, but it's not just one simply. It is 100% a conversion engine. It converts people who come to your website into subscribers. It converts them into fans. It converts them into customers. It converts them into many other things that you want. But it is essentially used to change them into something more valuable to you. Moving ahead. Just remember one thing. There's something called conversion rate, which will be used a lot in digital marketing. It's a digital marketing term. It's also a sales term or a marketing term. It is a measure of success of an online ad or an online campaign when compared to the click-through rate. Now, what's a click-through rate? Let me give you first an example of a click-through rate. If you send an email out to everyone saying, please click this link and go to my website and subscribe to my website email, or please click on this link and go to my website and download the app. Okay, so what my link is asking you in that email is to click on it. If you click on that link and go to my website and do nothing, I would say that you have clicked through to my website. So if I send out 100 emails, and out of 100 emails, only 80 people open it, that's called an open rate. Out of that 80 people, if 60 people click on the link, that's called a click-through rate. 60% out of 100, or 60 out of 100 people clicked on the link and went to my website. Out of that 60, only 10 people downloaded my app as I asked them to. Now, was the intended action. My call to action, this is another term that we'll be using in digital marketing a lot, is call to action. My call to action was that you open the link, go to my website, and download the app. If you downloaded the app, you have converted as a user, or you are a successful conversion. So I would say 10 out of 100, or 10% of the people who I send an email to are now converted, or my conversion rate is 10%. So if I go back, what defines a conversion depends on the marketing objective. Example, it can be defined as a sale or request to see more information or whatsoever. It can be like, for example, someone says, please click like, subscribe, or comment on my video. All three are call to actions. If you like the video, he will know that, some people have liked it. Out of, let's say, 1 million views, he got 750,000 likes. So that's around how much? Maybe 75% conversion rate. If he says, please subscribe to my channel, out of 1 million views, he got, let's say, 100,000 new subscribers. Now that's 10% conversion rate for them. 100,000 out of 1 million is 10%, and so on and so forth. Moving ahead. So there are certain steps you can take to build a website or an app. They can deviate from time to time, but this is the most simplest format I could come up with. Number one is sitting down with your team, or even alone if you want to, is start by planning, number one, your goals. What do you want to achieve when you build this website? Do you want to make it a website where people come and buy things? Do you want it to use it as a communication channel or a promotional channel? Do you want to establish just a presence? Do you want it to be a blog? What do you want it to be? And what do you want it to generate for you? Money through advertisement, money through sales, money through subscribers? And then define the type of people you want to attract to this website. That's your target market. Think about the competitors you have in the market, direct and indirect, and what does their website look like, or what does their app look like, and how do they attract people to their target market? How do they convert their prospective user into a final customer? Think about the resources that you would require in order to build your website. And of course, you would need the programmer, some sort of hosting program, hosting, I would say, plan as well. You would need to, what do you call it, maybe make it video content oriented. Maybe you need to make it music content oriented. You need to have some form of content as well. And how long do you think it will take for you to at least establish your website? Generally speaking, it can take from 2 weeks to maybe even 6 months. Depends on what type of website you're building. The second step, excuse me, is designing. Please do not confuse designing for colors and images. Designing is also wireframes. Designing is also the structure. Designing is also the flow. So overall, what is the look and feel of your website? Is it like Amazon, an inventory system? Is it going to be an extranet or e-campus? Is it going to be a communication website, like a social media website? Or is it going to be an e-tailer website? So, and how is it going to represent your company's brand image? What sort of colors would it use? What sort of themes it would use? And what sort of overall user experience do you want to build? And a user experience, remember, in marketing is all that matters, okay? Number three, when you start the coding process is development of the website. Now you engage in the real website development. You start coding it. You start generating content that you want to put on. You start establishing links between the different structures of the website. What sort of web pages do you want? What sort of structure or sitemap you're going to develop? And of course, you have to have a navigational hierarchy as well. Lastly is the testing part. Now I'm saying lastly because after this is you will have to go with your website on a live format. You have to launch it. So testing, it should work the way it is intended to, not at a one-time exercise, because you'll have to constantly test your websites. You have to look for any sort of errors, any sort of report issues, that some page links could be dead, some content could be missing, some users might report that the website or app is constantly crashing. Okay. Next thing is nowadays you must design your website to be able to open up on phones and tablets or tablet technology computers. So this code also, RWD simply stands for responsive web design, is how the elements of your website will change according to the screen size and the operating system. Let's say if I open up a facebook.com, mobile.facebook.com on, excuse me, if I open it up on a iPhone, so it may not look the same, but it will behave the same because on a smartphone and tablet, I use touchscreen technology. So how would it respond to the tactile nature of how a person uses a cell phone, a computer versus a tablet? Okay, because you don't use the mouse on a tablet, you use your fingers to move the cursor around. Lastly, is deployment. Your site has gone live. It's being hosted on a some sort of hosting platform, and it probably requires a domain name system as well. So if you get a DNS, let's say if your website is called babermirza.com, someone has you have to buy that out. So all of these things will count, but that's all the part of the major steps. And I said major steps, so there are of course detailed steps in between. So move ahead. Let's talk about planning a bit. Okay, now once again, I'm trying to keep this minimum to a 45 minute. I don't want to extend it too far, but you know, what can we do? I talk a lot. Okay, all right, planning overview. Know why you are building a website or an app. There has to be concrete reasoning behind it. Are you going to generate money? Is it for promotional reasons? Is it a temporary website? Is it a permanent website? Are you going to be blogging on it? Because you need to have traffic come your way, so there has to be some sort of benefit to it. It has to be substantial reasoning. Know who your website is for. What type of audiences are coming to your website? What type of content are they looking for? And are you generating the right content for them? And would they keep it engaged? Build usability and accessibility into your website design at all costs. And since you won't be doing it on your own, you'll be hiring a programmer and designer to do it. You'll have to inform about that. What is usability? That is, a user experience should be simple, elegant, and of course functional. If you want further information, there's a link over there that you can use. It's called usability.gov, and I'll explain that better. But if you want to know more about usability, you can even think about things like user experience and user interaction. UI UX is a great way to start, but I don't teach that at the moment. Accessibility is to allow people with disability or special needs to browse your website, such as someone is blind and you have an image on your website. How would they know what's the description of the image? So we use something called the alt image tag, and it has a description in it about the image, which is very clear. And so when someone's going through your website and they're blind, the the website engine reads out, the operating system reads out what's written on the website. When it comes to image, it will say image of an image description, man holding a gun, okay, or man holding flowers or whatsoever. Remember, the a website is a bit like a more or less like a book. Everything in it, is based on text. And text is the lifeblood of any website or even an app or social media, because that's why when we use search engine optimization, we base it on keywords and key phrases. So words make your website tick. It's the content that matters. And lastly, but not least, you must be very well aware of your competition. You must constantly research your competition. You must get a heads up on them and see what they're doing next, because if you don't, your viewers will go to them. It's that simple. If they'll beat you at it. So when you're planning the user experience, let me explain with a little bit of clarification. In marketing, we don't build products and services. We build experiences. We build solutions to people's problems. If people enjoy drinking coffee at Starbucks, it's because they are enjoying that experience. Coffee is available at so many places, but they prefer to go to Starbucks. And Starbucks never stated they made coffee. They say we give the consumer the best caffeine experience. If someone enjoys the experience, they will come back over and over again. So, similarly, you don't build a product, you build the experience of that product around it. People enjoy going to the cinema. They watch movies like Batman or Superman, and then they go back and try to relive the experience, so they buy their merchandise. So everything is connected to the experience. Even going to McDonald's. People say McDonald's is great, but it's not. But it's the experience of going there that keeps them hooked on. It may not be the best one, but it's satisfactory enough for them to keep on becoming repeat customers. So let's talk about user experience. And there are three parts to it. There, the before part, the during part, and the after part. So before we use something, we call it anticipation. Imagining the use of the product without actually having used it is called subjective expectation, or this is where perceptions are formed without using it. So if I'm going to visit a website like Amazon, which I've never used in my life, and I only heard from my friend that it's a great website, and it can cause you to buy things very quickly. So I will have high expectation. If someone tells me to use a site like what do you call it, Airbnb, to reserve my room or an apartment, is very simple to use, I will be having high expectations. And then comes the part when I do go there and try to use these websites, the during phase. This is the using part is about usability, use effective, efficient, and satisfying completion of goals. While I'm using it, I don't have difficulty. The website is, it downloads fast. It does not crash on me. Uh, e- Everything is very smooth in transition. Nothing is complicated. The process is very simple to understand. It's, I would say, very organic process. I enjoy the browsing capabilities. I enjoy the download capabilities. I enjoy the search engine capabilities built into the website. And finally, when I'm done with it, it's called a digestion. Is how am I leaving the website? Is called after use. I say identification or disassociation from the product. Identification means I can relate to this experience very well. For example, I don't drink at Starbucks because I can't relate to people drinking expensive coffee full of milk, and so therefore I don't go there. So that's disassociation for me. But I enjoy drinking coffee from like regular brasseries. And for me, that's amazing. Go to a cafe that's €1, €1 60 cent coffee. It's fine for me, but so I can identify. And remember, in digital marketing, there are three phases to everything, be it using a website, be it using a social media, be it using even an app. We call it, uh, oh, great, now I forgot. My mind is not working. Yes, acquisition, behavior, and outcome. Acquisition is how you arrive at a website. Behavior is what you do on a website. Outcome is how you leave the website. It's kind of similar to this user experience. Anyways, moving ahead. Now, before you tend to build a website, you said, I need to have a catchy name for my website that should relate to my business. If that You can first check if your business name is available on the domain name system, the DNS hosting. You can get this from anywhere, okay, as long as you register your name on the DNS or domain name system, which is online. There's so many places you can register. It's usually $20 or €20 per year, but if it's new, I think you register for 2 years straight legally, and then after that, someone might challenge you for that name as well. Depends on the business. For example, McDonald's, the food company, challenged McDonnell Douglas, the Air Force, sorry, the company that makes jets, fighters, and all. And McDonald's won because they say if you're McDonald's, you're more famous, and you're McDonnell Douglas and not McDonald's restaurant. So they won over the domain name. So you need to have your own domain name. So if you're running consultancy, let's say like Baber Mirza Consultancy, you can have a name like Mirza Consultancy.com or babermirza.com. That works as well. Whatever's catchy for you, or interesting enough, or maybe your business could have something interesting, like let's say uh, real California real estate. That's pretty long, California real estate. So you can write CAF dash real estate or realtors or whatever. So make sure to, this is not an easy process. You need to probably sit down with your team to make it more catchy or maybe even relevant and memorable. Uh, it's best to use a country-specific top-level domain code. For example, if you're coming from India, so if you have a business, say Mirza Consultancy or Mirza and company.co.id, I think that's for India, or for France is Mirza.fr, and so on and so forth. It's that way people can recognize that where your business is also located. Okay. You can of course buy multiple domains. That doesn't matter. You can have a .com, .co.uk, .fr as well, like Zara. Zara doesn't have a .com usually, but if you go to Zara.fr, it will take you to Zara.com/fr. Okay, you can check that out, by the way. So consider different suffixes to relate to your business. If you are an NGO, you can have the .org sign. If you are a government-related business, you can have a .gov, but that's for the government. But nowadays, that is not really necessary. You can have any sort of email, sorry, web address. Okay, for example, I think PSB uses this. Is I think psbedu.paris. You can even have sony.me. You can have, let's say, google.apps, or you can have baber.mirza, and that will be function as a website domain name. So according to the new, DNS systems, which has been placed for quite some time, many people have taken advantage of these domain name system, but people still use the .com and .org, .net as being still more relevant in practice. So having even a keyword that people look for can be beneficial. For example, if I'm dealing in building websites, so I could say, you know, Mirza Web Development, Mirza, what do you call it? Something like Mirza Web Programmers or something like that in my domain name itself. Take, for example, Facebook.com. Well, Facebook is the name of the company, but it doesn't give away much other than this is social media. But if you were, let's say, Californian pizza, so it could be CaliPizza.com. Oh, people get it. Cali is short form of Californian pizza. It's pizza. So that makes kind of sense. Moving ahead. Now comes the part of hosting. Now, all of these terms can be found on the internet. So I'm not going to waste time in explaining each one, but you have to understand a few things. One thing is called bandwidth. The more users are connected to you per day, the more bandwidth you would require. If your bandwidth is used up, your website will cease to exist for that day. They say you have used up the bandwidth for the day or for the month or for the week. So bandwidth is like, when you listen to a radio, you imagine you're listening to radio and there are, like, say, 1 million people listening to the radio, and the people who provide you with those frequencies says, you know what, there are too many people logged in and we can't handle the pressure. So website is the same. When too many people are logged into your website, that website is being downloaded into their computer. So it becomes pretty heavy for the hosting company. So they said you have to increase your bandwidth. But if you're a small website, a small company, then you might not need a lot of bandwidth. For that, you'll have to sit down with your hosting partner and decide how much you need. And maybe they can even give you something like scalability options. For example, cloud hosting does that. It allows you scalability. Let's say throughout the year you get only 500 visitors per day, but during the sales period you get up to 50,000 visitors per day. So they could allow you to have more bandwidth for those days, and they'll just charge you maybe a little bit more. So usually, if you have a small website with small number of users coming over, you can use share hosting account. Share hosting account, basically they put your account or your website on a hard disk that is shared with different users. But a virtual dedicated hosting is, you're still, what do you call it, in a separate place. And dedicated hosting, virtual dedicated hosting is not so different from each other. But virtual dedicated hosting is that you probably have a few computers named to yourselves, and your hard disk, so your website is stored in that, and it allows you to have copies of your website on different servers. But dedicated hosting is that probably if you have a very large website, many users coming to you, let's say you're Zara.com, okay, and they're using a dedicated hosting, that's mainly in-house in a way. Virtual dedicated hosting is some other companies doing it for you, and they have several racks of computers being used. But dedicated hosting could be your own networking company or your own data center is hosting it for you. And then there's, of course, server co-location that they can have different locations. For example, you have one server in France, one in India, one in USA. So the server, when it's closer to the people, the website downloads faster. But cloud-based hosting is used when you need to scale up and down a lot. Let's say many users log in one day, the other day there are very few users. But please always avoid free hosting accounts. They are garbage. End up being hacked a lot, and they provide very little sort of, I would say, after sales service or customer support. Moving ahead. So when choosing a hosting company, I'm just going through this quickly. Choose a host in the country where your primary target market lives, so they're closer to it. Okay, so the server is in the country or in that region, so it's closer to the consumers where they're logging in. Make sure the host is reliable. Check for uptime and downtime. Usually they say your website should be up 99.99% of the time. That means there will be 2 hours of downtime per month or maybe 2 months. So that's when they're creating backups. But it shouldn't happen if you have, let's say, a mirror host or mirror page that people can go there while your website is being backed up. You should also look for what type of support they give. Technical support, customer support. Should it be 24 hours per 7? Is it only 9 to 5 office hours, only Monday to Fridays? Be careful for the money you pay, okay? Make sure they have a backup plan and a disaster recovery program as well. For example, backup plans are necessary every day. They create, how many times do they create a, let's say, how many times a week do they create a backup? Every day? Some companies have done every hour. Some companies done it every week. It depends on the nature of your website. Are you changing information per hour? Are you changing information per day or per week? Disaster recovery is if your website gets hacked or there's a fatal accident. Can you recover your data for that day? So this is all part of DRP, disaster recovery programs. Okay. Also ask what other people think about this sort of hosting program. Maybe it's not very reliable. Maybe it's just the average, or it could be the best one in town. And of course, shop around. Hosting is an incredibly competitive industry, but you never know. It's not always that you just stick to one hosting program. You can always switch over to others. And when you do, all you have to do is just, export your files over there and transfer them. No big deal. Moving ahead. So when you're planning, you also need to analyze competition. There are some tools available. Some of them can be free. Sometimes you have to pay for them. But for example, there's something called SimilarWeb. You can try out different websites and see what sort of traffic and how much traffic they're getting. And you could do the same for YouTube. You can do the same for maybe Facebook as well. You can track other pages and see how they're performing. In general, you have to just keep up to date with the news when you're analyzing competition. Look at the design they're using. Look at the type of content they're posting. What type of comments are they receiving on social media and likes and all. So I'm going to skip this part because down the road, there will be probably a section about analyzing competition as well. But that could be for another session altogether. So here's an interesting one. You can enlarge on this on your, I would say, your desktop or whatsoever. And there is a link for this. I found this pretty interesting. 10 ways to make money online. Okay, but once again, it depends on your business model. Okay, you can make money through making training videos or do-it-yourself videos or some sort of tutorial. You can make it through money through having people subscribe to your channel by paying for it. You can make money through, I would say, sponsorship and content marketing, and also by offering a service. You can do affiliate marketing, that's having partnerships with other people, launching events, and so on and so forth. There are many other options here for you to, and get ideas about it. There's so many business ideas out there, so I won't just stick to all of them, but I think this could be some interesting thing for you to look into. Moving ahead. Now, this part is going to be a little difficult because a lot of people don't understand it takes money to gain customers. So there's something called COA, cost of acquisition. And every time people, you need to understand how much money you have to spend on different sort of communication and promotional methods to gain consumers. You have to translate them into a monetary value, because then there'll be something called ROMI, return on marketing investments. So this is something interesting. Let's say you have a monthly sales goal for a month of 3,086. Maybe I would say this is, I don't know if I wrote this in dollars. Yeah, sorry, my mind is not working. Yes, in $3,086. And they say, in order to number of visitors per month, you need to achieve monthly sales of 3,086 at $27 each. How so? Let's say if I am targeting a 10% 0.1% conversion rate, the monthly visitors I would require is close to 3,086,000. That's a whole lot. Now, if I would use 0.5%, I would require only how much? Sorry, my eyes are bad. 600,000 above. If I require 1% conversion and so forth, 1.5 all the way to 10% conversion. If I'm going to convert 10 people into a sales, from a lead to a sales, I would require monthly visitation from users. At least I would require 3,000 above visitors to come to my website in order to gain a 10% conversion. Not, I would say gain, but if I do gain it, that means 10% of the whole people coming, if 30,000 of them actually buy something, I would achieve my monthly goal. But then again, having this sort of table is very interesting that, you can see how you fluctuate between different periods. It's a simple sales goal over here. At the same time, you can use this to also calculate how much promotional effort you have to put in and how much that would cost. Let's say advertising on Instagram, advertising on Facebook, advertising on Google AdWords, and so on and so forth. Using content marketing, creating content also costs money. And you'll have to think about those implications. Moving ahead. So, how to generate high customer revenue? Now, once again, there is no one size fits all strategy. There's not one way of generating money from a consumer. But, the first thing is to focus on increasing traffics, having more people come in, having the traffic find you, having the right type of people find you. If everyone comes to your website and they don't like what they see, they'll bounce out of the website. Bouncing is also part of an analytics. It's called the bounce rate. People leaving your website because they're not interested or because they found something that was not related to them. So we use methods of search engine optimization. We also use SEA, which is optimization of advertising skills, SMO, social media optimization. We also use affiliate programs, which is partnerships between different sort of, I would say, brands or online channels, so such as social media, so on and so forth. And maybe sometimes even joining partnerships with different people, like joint venturing with them. The best thing to do if you've studied marketing, we have the initial marketing phase called the marketing strategy phase of STP, segmentation, targeting, positioning, and differentiation. Please be very careful when you're finding out your target market. It's not as simple as just stating who they are. You have to research the mindset. You have to research the type of people in the industry, and then you have to give them a proper persona. I'll try to focus on persona in another session and how to build a persona through segmentation and targeting. Then from there, you calculate market potential. That means how many people exist in this segment and that you want to target. And when you are targeting them, you have to position that, create a positioning statement or create a positioning campaign in the sense that you want your target audience to view you perceptibly as the best offering in the market. And how would you differentiate yourself from the competition? So that is more or less a marketing exercise. You can also use upselling and cross-selling techniques. Upselling is selling them a premium account, maybe selling them something more expensive than what they're using. For example, Spotify. If you use Spotify Basic, you don't get certain features such as download or creating your own playlist. But if you use Spotify Premium, there are no advertisements. You can also create your own playlist. You can also download the music as well. Uh, Cross-selling is when you try to sell different items across the board. This happens usually, let's say in Zara. You'll look at a nice shirt on Zara. At the bottom, they said people who bought this shirt, they also bought other things like this belt, these shoes. So that's cross-selling from your own category. That could be interesting too. But this is, once again, one in 100 types of strategies that you could look into. Moving ahead. Now, some people are looking into what we call heat map tools, and it's becoming much more common. They're also becoming more democratized, or I would say commoditized as well. So what do heat maps tools do? When you design your website, you can use the software to see how people's eyes are tracked. They've even started using this in video gaming technology to see how people look at video games, where their eyes go to the most. So your area of interest should be where the people's eyes highlight the most. Okay, so here's some of these examples, like Crazy Egg, Lucky Orange, Clicktail, Heatmap.me, and PT Engine. There's some places you can go to, and it will be very interesting to see the results when you design your website or app. How do people look at it? Where do their eyes focus the most? So where the eyes focus the most is where you could have your main headlines or catchy headlines to go to. And of course, you can rework this many times. It's usually there's a trial and error period through this. Okay, so building a website or an app, it's not a one-off. You'll have to do this constantly. And there's also something called an A/B testing, which I'll teach you guys probably later. In A/B testing, you actually see how one group, a test group, like control group A versus a test group B, how do they view things, what's more interesting to them, and then you'll have to change the format where things are more interesting. But that's for another day. All right, moving ahead. Now, a font is basically the text typeface, and all these types of fonts, they're designed in a way that allows the reader to pick up information without hurting their eyes too much, making it more attractive, making something stand out, using some parts could be used for citations, some parts could be used to highlight another issue, and so on and so forth. Okay. So here's some examples. For example, the font Arial is great for headlines and subheadings. Comic Sans gives a little side informal look, and to be honest, a lot of people don't like Comic Sans. It's used in schools or in places where children go to, but it could be used for more casual audiences. Georgia has a good all-round font for screens with easy to read text for primary content and italics. Trebuchet is another good all-round font as well. Veranda, I don't think it's Veranda. I think it's Verdana. I think, I'm sorry, I made a mistake here. It's Verdana, I think. It's the most readable font overall among web-based text fonts. But Trebuchet is becoming increasingly popular. There's also the evil Helvetica. I hate that font because it's Apple-based. Anyways, moving ahead. Here are some ideas if you ever study about colors in marketing. So, for example, their interpretation of these sort of colors. Blue is honesty, trustworthiness, calming, and loyalty. Facebook, LinkedIn use the color blue. Black is for authority, sophistication, and power and elegance. For example, Zara's font is black. Abercrombie and Fitch, the website is dark and black. Yves Saint Laurent as well. The color white, for example, if you go to the Apple Store, and even it's very white in general. It's purity, peace, and all. Red, for example, McDonald's or Burger King or KFC, this passion, energy, and excitement. Pink, Pinterest is not generally pink, I think. I'm not sure, but it's for innocence and softness. Green is for nature, that's without any sort of, I would say, context. You can just look at a lot of nature websites. They usually use the color green, even sustainable websites or people when they talk about Greenpeace. Dark green is for wealth and conservatism, and the list goes on. But you can look this up, okay? It would be good of you to study different types of fonts and different colors, or maybe I have a designer explain those things to you. Moving ahead. Okay, once again, a little bit of repetition. For yellow, it can be optimistic or cheery, but it can be dominating. Yellow can also be used for hunger and for warning. Purple is for wealth, sophistication, sometimes even mystery. Okay, brown depends on what shade of brown it is. It could be for authenticity or sadness. Orange for happiness, alertness, playfulness, and gold for expensiveness and prestige. But there's no really gold color. It's just, a shade of green, I think. Anyways, moving ahead. There's some things you need to avoid every time you're making a website, okay? For example, making your main navigation bar too crowded. People want things to be simplified. If you give them too many options, they will get confused. But if your options are very relevant, then it is fine to have a little bit overcrowdedness. Take, for example, if you visit a retail outlet where they offer clothes, so you can have men's, women's, children, contact us, about us, subscription, or whatsoever. But if you have too many things, it is just annoying. Your sidebar is also like a navigation bar, but should be used properly. Is if it's overloaded with random widgets, people hate that. People hate widgets nowadays as well. And also your color scheme should not hurt the eyes. It should be very pleasant. It should be soft on the eyes. People should not retract away from it. Okay, so be careful with the type of bright colors you might use. It may look great for you, but the customer might not like it, but the user might not like it. It's best to, when you create a website, is to have it reviewed by different types of people and have their opinions mentioned to you. Do a focus group with them if necessary. Your content is difficult to scan. This means that there's not enough text material. Your site is not structured properly according to schema.org, because search engines are computer functions and computers need to scan that sort of text. Not only that, the human eye also needs to read text properly. So if it's difficult to scan through it or read through it or even make sense of it, people will leave and search engines will not be able to browse your website for keywords. You must use, if you use about 15 different types of fonts, my God, don't be silly. Okay, don't be immature. Keep it very, very simple. I think the 2 or 3 fonts that are usually used, there's even a structure for that. For example, if you're writing a news article and if you're citing someone, if you're using a description of a picture, those fonts change for a reason, because people need to know how their text is breaking up and the visual flow is changing. Your social sharing buttons are missing. Oh man, not in this day and age, if you have a social media channel, you must highlight that in every part of your content. And if they're missing, people will be confused. How can I reach out to them? It's Web 3.0 and HTML5 nowadays. You're still using CAPTCHA or word verification. It's fine to use that if you want to block out, I would say, bots from invading your website content, but it can make things difficult for people to subscribe to your content. You must use better methodology than that. Uh, there are other ways of authentication nowadays. Some people use phone numbers. Two-factor authentication makes sign up easier, but verification has its own process as well. Okay. If you use low quality images, your website image will suffer. There are methods of having high quality images that download faster through, I would say, compression techniques. What we say, image compression, but you can look into those softwares. Another problem, there are too many pop-ups. Nowadays, a lot of websites ask for your location and people block them. Then they ask for, can we use cookies on your website? People get turned off so easily, they start looking for other places for their information. So avoid throwing up pop-ups such as, oh, please subscribe to my website, or please, would you take up this offer? Don't. Okay, be gentle in your approach. Next. Okay, almost done. When it comes to choosing your own web designer, developer, UI, UX designer, graphic designer, whatsoever, even a content manager, community manager, it all starts with first looking at their website. How do they design their website? Does it look really nice? Does it look very attractive? Does it look very professional? And the best thing to do is, if you have a friend who is a website designer and developer, you should ask their opinion that you're hiring someone and what do you think about this person? So also look into their portfolio. What sort of websites have they designed in the past? For which sort of industry have they designed it for? Okay. Also, if you know someone that has had their website designed by them, ask them for their reputation. Does it precede them or not? Sometimes some developers and programmers also contribute to the knowledge base of that community. For example, Android developers and even website developers, sometimes you can find help on like Stack Overflow and other places, such as even for Microsoft developers. They used to be openly talking about on different forums if you needed help. There's so many places you can find for help. And some people have what we say point system for blogging right things on the right forum, and they, their status has raised as one of the best bloggers out there who've been providing to that community. Okay. And don't forget, their websites are designed to be found, meaning their own website is following the proper SEO format or schema.org format. I'll discuss schema.org separately, but not for now. Okay, moving ahead. Okay, when it comes to arranging information, you must think of your website like it's a book. with lots of different chapters and content and parts. And all those content parts and everything are arranged systematically in a logic format. Where, for example, if you're reading a book on marketing, you generally, do the pastel in the second or third chapter. You do the consumer behavior part in the fourth or fifth chapter. And then you go to the 4 Ps after segmentation, targeting, positioning. And after that, you go into other details. So everything has its flow and logic and categorization. So the best way would be to start categorizing according to keywords on your website, or a certain sort of theme could be used. Just like very simple, if you're selling, let's say clothing, you're a clothing retail store, you can start by sectioning people into genders and age, male, female, children. Then you can further down the segmentation into types of clothes, uppers, lowers, footwear, outerwear, and so on and so forth. Then you can go into sizes and so on and so forth. It all depends on how people also look for certain products. For example, if you're looking for shoes, it might come into casual or formal wear. Then if you go into formal wear, they might ask for leather, or they might ask for, maybe not non-leather type of items or whatsoever. Moving ahead. All right, before I wrap it up, there's some things that you need to know. This is when you're writing content. Now, sometimes some people are very good at writing and some are not. And writing is not just about writing. Now, most people now start creating videos. And when they create videos, they also need to add subtitles. Most, I would say, video content developers do add native subtitles on purpose. So if someone wants a video tutorial, the subtext can be picked up by the search engine, which is very interesting for them to have their content be found. So you can't simply take your offline marketing collateral and just copy paste it into the website. No, that's not how it happens. Okay, you need to have an attention grabber, the proper headline. It's a bit of a clickbait, Now, why would someone click on your website? Or why would they click on a headline or a post or a blog or social media content? Make it scannable, meaning the text should be readable by the search engines as well. The content should be readable by the search engine, even though they're images. Images can have alt tags and description on it. Uh, Make it original as much as possible. Don't copy someone else's content. That is just wrong. Use the inverted pyramid, meaning go from the big headline and then focus on the details when you keep going deeper into your content. Okay, and be consistent about your topics and information. Don't fluctuate too much. If your data is fluctuating too much or the information is fluctuating, create a separate post, a separate content for that. Because people lose interest over time when they're in a content. If it's too long, they're like, this is getting boring. Okay, and always engage with your readers through maybe commenting, through surveys, something or the other. Just like when the YouTube people nowadays say, or YouTubers say, please comment, like, or subscribe. Commenting is also interesting now, and nowadays if someone comments badly, they can be reported. So as before it was much more difficult, now it's getting much more easier. But this is just a start. Okay, take this session with a grain of salt. There's a lot of theory here, and when you get into the details, it becomes more and more interesting. So I thank you all for listening, and it's painful for me to say this, but I think this was a hell of a boring session. I could have made this more interesting and more wittier, but it's going to be free content for the time being. And if you, of course, have any questions, you can send them my way and avoid naughty comments below. Okay, thank you very much.